Okay. Tiffany and Leah and Rita, I wanted to make a quick video and try to explain to you the problem that we're having with these garments at South States. So this is just a basic chemise. The problem is when South States attached the binding all the way around, including on the straps, what they did is they used 1/8 inch elastic instead of 3/16 inch elastic. And what happened is the 1/8 inch elastic did not catch on the stitch. So basically the clear elastic is just inside the strap, but it's just floating freely. So what's happened is it started to bunch up. And I know it's very hard to see, but every inch or inch and a half all along the binding and all along the straps, there'll be like a little bump. And what that bump is if you open up the seam, you can see there'll be clear elastic and it's kind of folded. You probably hard to see this too, but it's sort of folded on top of each other. If you open up the seam, you'll see that. So instead of the elastic being sewn into the actual stitch and holding nice and flat, it's basically free floating in that strap because there's no stitch holding it. So it's starting to bunch up, and it's creating these little bumps every inch or so all around the garment. And I'm sure every garment is slightly different, but Soma has very, very strict quality standards. They will never accept this. So I think what we need to do, we need to rip off all of this binding, and ideally you would have some extra fabric. You only need about 100 yards, and you could completely remake the binding and reattach it using 3/16 elastic. If you don't have any fabric at all that's extra, then you're going to have to rip this off and reuse the same binding. Alicia is with me. Alicia had a great, you can leave it, right? Alicia had a very good possible suggestion. Obviously, when we rip off the binding, we have no allowance to play with. We don't have a 1/2 inch to feed into the folder. We don't have a 1/2 inch on the back end to hold our finger as we're sewing. So Alicia was suggesting by size. So if you take the smalls, we rip the binding off the smalls, and then we attach all, this garment's binding to the next size smalls binding to the next size smalls binding. So what you end up with is a nice long length of binding. What that would do is you wouldn't lose a 1/2 inch every time trying to feed it into the folder. It would all just be a nice continuous run. Now, we have not tested that at MGT yet, so you may want to just join maybe 3 garments and just test that out and make sure that it works. And make sure that you do it by size. Do all the smalls, all the mediums. Don't mix smalls with mediums. I can tell you, we did rip a garment and we sewed the exact same binding back onto the garment using single needle stitch, using 3/16 inch elastic, and we used a number 27 texturized thread, and we used that texturized thread in the bobbin only. You don't use the texturized thread in the needle. If you use the texturized thread in the needle, then your stitch the thread will keep breaking.
Yes.
Okay? So again, texturized thread, you can use a number 24 or you can use a number 27, either one, and you only put it in the bobbin. So basically, I just wanted to make a little video for you and just kind of explain the situation and what we're going to have to do. We need to make sure, and PYL hopefully will be with you at this point, we need to make sure that this binding is nice and flat and that we don't see these little bumps and ridges every inch or so where the elastic is bunching up. Alicia, do anything else?
No, that's it.
Nothing else?
Nothing
Okay.
else, yeah.
The one thing you'll have to be careful with, we obviously still need to meet the measurements. When we made our garment, we were able to meet the strap measurements no problem. The only place we had a little bit of difficulty, we lost about a 1/2 inch on the front neck binding only. So ideally, you would have I think we need 14 yards would be enough to make new binding for all of the 2,000 garments for all sizes. So if you have even 14 yards of extra fabric, you could make up front binding with new binding, and then we would meet our spec no problem. The spec meeting for everything else seemed to work out okay.
Yes, yes. No problem.
If you don't, just be careful. We were still able to come, we were half an inch off. There's a 1/4 inch tolerance, so we're a 1/4 inch small on the garment, but at least it looks good. So just be careful. We can't have you be 2 inches small. The other thing, when we first started sewing the garment, we did get puckering because we were trying to feed in the elastic and hold the binding all at the same time, and we did get some puckering. So you need to watch your quality very carefully. It will probably take a sewer 1 or 2 or 3 garments to really learn how to control that properly. So just be careful. I don't want to end up with flat binding but puckering all along the bottom, of the garment, where the garment attaches. What happens is we get puckering right underneath the binding. So this garment doesn't have it, but that's where you end up with the puckering if you don't control the tension of the clear elastic and of that polyspan binding as you're feeding it into the folder. Okay, so that's all of our advice for you.
Yeah.
I will send you an email, and you can go over this as well. And good luck.